Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another installment of TED Excellence, the show in which I don't know what I'm doing half the time, but hey, I pretend pretty good. And I come to you live from my Corona bunker on the moon with Dogcat Fox, a Pepperjack, and all of you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome again to Thursday. Terrible Thursday. I don't know. It wasn't that terrible. It was a little warm, and I'm not made for heat, but, whatever. That's about it. How are you guys doing? Doing all right? Glad you're doing all right. Who is all you doing all right? Why, that would be Funtime Bats, hello. Jaeger Pony, hello. Keeverdam, hello. The Magister, hello. John Kelly, hello. Mike R, hello. John Miller, hello. Who else is here? Seftus Wolf, hello. Bridget, hello. Zeke Weiss, hello. Brittany Holland, hello. Emperor WR Costin, hello. Enigma 500, hello. Attack Alpaca, hello. Zero the Hero 909, hello. Hello. What a wonderful word. Hello. Jamie Melquist, hello. Mike Savage, Blard. Sheldy, hello. And as things roll up, I think that's everybody I see. If I missed you, I apologize. Oh, Roger Reynolds, hello. I'll try to get a few more hellos in later, but where are we at tonight, guys? Well, first and foremost, I want to announce, and I will remind at the end of the show, that I have, for the very first time and perhaps the only time, a giveaway to give away. I have a Steam key for a game that I was given, but it was for a game that I already owned because I sort of bought it on pre-order kind of thing. But it was very nice to receive it, but I have a free gift to give away. So the game is called Born Punk. It is a cyberpunk classic point-and-click adventure that has it's just come out or about to come out. But either way, I have a Steam key. And so how are we going to do this? Well, I actually had to look up how do you do a YouTube giveaway. And what there's a site out there called, it's like YouTube Random Comment Picker or something. So here's how this is going to work. And it might be the only time I try this. Once this video is published, as in once the presentation is over, and you can leave a comment on the video, please leave a comment with your Twitter address or some way in which I can get in touch with you that you're comfortable with relaying onto a comment or something. Or just say, I want the game or something like that. Whatever. I will use the random comment picker to pick a random comment and try to get that to you. So that's it. That's as complicated as it gets. Leave a comment after the video is published saying you want the game and then some indication of how I might get that information to you, or we'll figure something out, and there you go. So there you go. We'll try it. Maybe it'll be a disaster. I don't know. And I've only got the one key, so there's only going to be one winner. And I'm going to do a random comment thing. So there you go. But secondly, what are we looking at tonight? Well, as with most TEDx's, it's always the title that grabs me first. If it grabs me elsewise, then something else is going on. Leading in an Age of Employee Activism, the Do's and Don'ts. Now, as always, I have not watched this presentation ahead of time. But I did have a sort of reflexive, visceral reaction to the idea of leading in an age of employee activism. Because in general terms, if an employee wants to be an activist, they can do that on their time and not on company time. If the company decides to do something like, collect money for the Salvation Army for a disaster relief somewhere or something, right? I suppose it's not quite activism, but if the company itself decides to take action in some way, shape, or form, usually you don't compel, I should say, the employees to participate unless they choose to. And usually you don't encourage political activism within your company ranks on the chance that there might be, conflict, hostile work environment risks, and so on. So I don't know exactly what our speaker is going to talk about, but that's my initial reaction. Is not to encourage your employees to act as activists on company time. Even though that seems to be something that is becoming more and more common these days, I just feel like it's probably not a wise idea. But who knows? Maybe she'll convince me otherwise. We'll find out in a moment. But let me also switch up the pinned comment on the chat box there to the one that Keeverdam has posted. Thank you, Keeverdam, for the GoFundMes for our friend Shady Grin, Angry Illinoisian, and his kitten. If you guys happen to have a moment or two to take a look at those, their loved ones and their friends could certainly use a couple of bucks if you have it to spare. So thank you for that ahead of time. And hello, senior staff reporter and chief Florida correspondent Colleen Bernier. And tall person, hello. And Big Dave 1066, hello. Deco, hello. And if I missed anyone else, I apologize, but time is of the essence. So with that, let's get into it. This one clocks in at just over 16 minutes. Today's bingo card is bingo card B. B as in Benjamin Franklin. You can find the links to the bingo cards in the description below. And so get ready with your bingo cards, get ready with your ears, and let's find out how to be a leader of employee activists or something.
Speak up.
I am speaking up. Okay. You guys hear that? I assume you have, but I'll double check. John Miller, seriously, what game? It's called Born Punk. It is a cyberpunk side-scrolling adventure point-and-click deal of the classic variety. If you are interested in possibly attaining a Steam Key prize for that after this show is published, and you can leave a comment in the comments section, leave a comment saying you'd like to win the game. And I'm going to use a random comment picker online to randomly pick a winner. So it's kind of like a raffle. It's a digital raffle. Let's see. Speaking up, 5x5. Yes, says Jamie Melquist. Cephas Wolf says, I wish I didn't. What, speak up? Oh.
Bring your whole selves to work.
Oh, my favorite. Bringing my whole self to work. Usually I just throw a leg in.
Be the difference that you want to see.
Oh, she's going through all the buzz phrases. Now, these aren't buzz phrases that she's coming up with herself. Okay, yeah.
Sound familiar?
Yes, very much so.
Starting to sound very familiar to quite a few employees.
Uh-huh.
Now, many leaders are asking voices of difference to speak up.
Voices of difference. Okay.
And that's because what gets said and what doesn't in our workplaces has a huge consequence for things like ethical conduct, innovation, inclusion, talent retention.
Sure. Make broad generalized statement of common sense-ishness and possible correctness, and I will nod yes.
So more and more employees at the moment are starting to speak up about social and environmental concerns.
Well, here's a question for you. Unless their business is directly involved in such things themselves, should they? And probably more important to the bottom line, should companies be encouraging them to do so on company time and with company resources?
And this is great, but it's not always going quite to plan for everybody.
Yeah, because not everybody has the same opinion on certain issues. Maybe?
A finance director I've been working with, he's been asking his employees to speak up for quite a while, and now they've started to.
And is the phrase, be careful what you wish for, coming to fruition by any chance?
So they're saying, okay, let's talk about race.
Let's talk about race, baby. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the good things. All right, let's go to the bingo card real quick and remind ourselves what we're keeping our ears open for. Anecdote that probably never happened. Well, this is her first anecdote, but I can believe that it's happening. Self-vilification or wretchedness? Not yet. Systemic institutional? We'll probably get there. Weightless example? Not yet. Word salad? Not yet. Leaves out vital context? No. Collectivize his own demographic? Not yet. White supremacy? We might get there. A list? Not yet. Privilege? No. Sales pitch for product or service? Well, she's talking about some finance person she works with or is assisting or something, so Maybe she's a consultant or something. Not sure yet. Plays victim. Not yet. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase. She's gone through a litany of buzz phrases, but nothing original yet. Wage gap. No. Patriarchy. No. Feminism. No. Mind reading assumes motives. Not yet. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. More or less, she pretty much just said so in her diverse voices of difference, etc. So I'm going to circle that one. And likewise, reflexively circle free space. Let's see, marginalization, not yet, although it's implied by, those voices not heard sort of thing, but we'll wait and see if she says something more definitive. Argumentative non sequitur, not yet. Childhood or family anecdote, not yet. Contradicts own point or argument, no. Benevolent condescension, no. And microaggressions, unconscious bias, we'll probably get there. So far we have free space, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Let's proceed.
Let's talk about gender equity.
Oh, gender equity. No, that's still equity. That's not wage gap. Not yet. But maybe feminism, maybe patriarchy. We'll see.
Climate change. I want to talk about that. Modern slavery.
Modern slavery? You mean like in the Middle Eastern countries or where?
And this finance director came to me somewhat stunned and said, Megan, I've got to admit, when I ask people to speak up, I was kind of thinking that I'd get more transparency around compliance issues and a few good ideas.
Well, your finance administrator guy is either very naive or dumb. One of the two or both.
I didn't really bank on getting everything else.
Yeah, well, then don't ask. Or be specific. Please, if you have any ideas for how we can, streamline our work processes, just don't say speak up, whatever you want to talk about. Like, okay, macrame. You're like, I don't want to talk about macrame. You asked.
But this is an era of employee activism.
Unfortunately.
And that's great.
No.
But why does it end up on the front pages of the newspaper for the wrong reasons sometimes?
You'll have to explain.
Employees walking out.
Well, that's activism.
Getting fired.
Well, that's the consequence of doing something at work you're not supposed to be doing and breaking the rules. It is kind of a contradiction, isn't it? That there's so many progressive employers out there and companies and corporations that are so big on cheering on activism sort of as lip service, but then when their employees actually decide to take them at their word, they inevitably end up contradicting some sort of like company bylaw or something, like unionizing. That's a kind of activism, isn't it?
Taking to social media.
Yeah, there's a bad idea.
Organizational reputations destroyed.
Yeah, well, that's what you risk when you decide to empower your employees to take the company name to back whatever crazy idea or philosophy or ideology that they choose to.
Or investors seeking change at the top of organizations.
Yeah, well, if they paid the money, that's probably their prerogative.
So my research over the past few years with John Higgins has involved interviewing hundreds of activists and leaders and activist leaders.
And what did you find?
And our work's in service of enabling voices of difference to make a difference.
Okay, voices of difference. What are you talking? I'm almost inclined to circle that for buzzword, buzz phrase, because I don't think I've heard it put quite that way before. But I need her to define this. I can assume, but I hate assuming,
In the workplace.
Uh-huh.
Now, today I'm just going to draw out 4 key findings.
Oh, 4 key findings. That's a list. Circling a list.
And I'm also going to go through a few do's and don'ts for leaders who want to navigate this territory proactively, productively.
Productively is do not encourage your employees to become activists on company time, full stop. That is the easiest Gordian knot solution to the problem that your finance advisor client had to encounter. That really is the easiest answer. Your activism can be done on your time. And don't use the company branding when you're doing it unless you're authorized to do so by the company. That's the long and the short in my book.
So let me start with a question.
Okay.
When I say the word activist, what comes to mind?
Picket sign. I mean, it's very boilerplate, but yeah, picket sign.
What images? What thoughts? What assumptions? Well, we've asked thousands of people that question. And I can safely say that the words activist and activism are loaded terms.
Yes, because they could mean anything and describe anybody, from a passive Gandhi-like activist to an insane extremist. That's why it's a loaded term, because it is so amorphous a concept. Wow, you're just dropping truth bombs all over the place on this one.
They mean everything from progress and courage and passion and change through to protest, rebellion, violence.
I suppose so. Yes, because it is a very broad term.
It's quite cool to be labeled an activist.
Really? I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to be categorized just in general terms as, oh, Scribe is an activist. Like, really? Is it cool? Is it cool to be an activist?
In some parts of the world.
Oh, okay.
And in relation to some issues.
I suppose so. As I glance over at the chat box, a couple more hellos here. Jonathan Peterson, hello. Yvonne Solomon, hello. Spudgun, hello. And did I miss anybody else? I probably did. And I apologize if I did. Okay. Anyway, hello.
And in other parts of the world,
yes,
and in relation to other issues, being labeled an activist is life-threatening.
Yes, because if you live in a totalitarian regime where anybody pushing against the status quo is seen as an enemy of the state, yes, it's true. Yeah, these terms can mean different things to different cultures at different times. Boy, big question in my mind. So what? Yeah.
So we need to understand the assumptions and the associations that we bring to activism, because of course that affects how we respond to it. I was working with the board of a healthcare organization.
Wait, the assumptions, that's unconscious bias. Not specifically, but in concept, I'm going to circle unconscious bias.
And in the coffee break, they started to talk about an employee who'd been pretty vocal on the internal comms channels about climate change. And he was quite critical of what the organization had been doing. It was really interesting because some of the executives labeled him as a troublemaker, kind of wanted to get rid of him. But there were a few executives that saw him as a trailblazer.
And what did this division in opinion do for the company?
And actually a couple that wanted to invite him into the board to educate them.
Oh, educate. Okay.
So we've got to the first key point for our leaders is to understand that activism is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah, gosh. Thanks. What is a voice of difference again? You've used that term a couple of times now, but you haven't defined it. But okay. Also, Tier Alexander, I made sure to highlight your comment because, hello. Arc210, hello.
As Ruchika Tulsian, author and activist, told us, what looks like rebellion to you is another person's basic human rights.
Unless it isn't. Oh, somebody's revving their engine outside. By the way, the lighting of this presentation is terrible. I couldn't do anything about that. That's not anything that I did. It's just that whoever filmed this and in whatever way they decided to light it, it's very, very shadowy. And I tried a couple of things on my video software to see if I could rectify that, but it just looked even worse. So just as a side note, that's just the way it is, unfortunately.
So the first thing you've got to do is really become aware of the kind of assumptions and judgments that you and your colleagues bring to activism.
Or not engage in activism on company time in the first place. Relegate that to your own personal time. Because unless you're going to give me an explanation about a common benefit, not some specific company or something, but a common benefit to the bottom line of employee activism. Wow, there's my brain going. Activism on company time. If there's not a business case to be made for activism on company time, you're not going to convince me it's a good idea, full stop. You're assuming it's just going to happen and is going to be there and has to be there. You haven't yet explained why it should be.
In order that you can then respond with more awareness and more mindfulness.
Mindfulness.
Second point,
okay.
Leaders can find themselves in an optimism bubble.
What?
We sometimes call it a delusion bubble.
Yes, we all live in a delusion bubble. It's usually called personal perspective, but yes.
As you get more senior, you overestimate the degree to which other people are speaking up.
You overestimate the degree to which other people are speaking up. Well, the higher you go in the company, the fewer people you're probably interacting with on a regular basis because that's delegated out. But speaking up about what? Climate change or what's going on in the company? What is more important to the company's health? Right? Finding out whether or not there are problems in production or HR or something, or that somebody has a problem with a deforestation thing taking place 75 miles away. Like, what are you talking about? Speaking up about what?
You overestimate your approachability. And you overestimate your listening skills.
Okay.
And that all means that you underestimate the strength of feeling that might exist with some of your employees.
About what? Do you have an active example? Aside from the very interesting and informative one that you gave us about your financial advisor client who opened the can of worms and got what he asked for, do you have an active example of what a company has done, or just a hypothetical based on your experience? Because you keep talking in abstracts and maybes, and I don't know what you're talking about.
Now, one of the key reasons for this is something we call advantage blindness.
Something we call, that's a new buzzword buzz phrase to me. Let's see. Let's attempt to coin a new buzzword buzz phrase. Circle in that one.
So when we have the labels and titles that convey status and authority in a particular context, like hierarchy, for example, we're often the last person to realize the impact that those labels have on how other people are able to speak up to us.
Mind reading assumes motives. She's either encouraging or discouraging, etc. It's just, you know, for somebody who sounds like that they're a regular speaker and educator on things, she's really not explaining herself very well.
In fact, it's not until we don't have those labels that we can kind of look at them and go, gosh, they make a difference to how people can voice around here.
Yes, because there is a hierarchy of control in a company. If I'm the president, what I have to say carries more weight for the direction of the company than the guy that just joined up 3 days ago in the mailroom or something. Yes, those titles matter. They convey something to other people about your place in the hierarchy. What? Am I going crazy here with just these logic bombs we're having dropped on us here? Yes, there is a separation. It's a power structure. It's a company. What are you saying, that those titles should be just done away with? Everybody is just one big, I don't know, commune?
So this point for leaders is all about understanding, are you in one of these optimism bubbles? Are you a bit detached? How do you know what your employees find matters in their organizations?
No. You're not talking. Give an example of something within, quote unquote, your organizations that equates to activism. You're talking about race and, climate change within the organization. What does any of that have to do with your standard organization that is not some kind of social activist nonprofit in and of itself? If I'm working for Widget Incorporated, why do I want my employees wasting any of their daily work time on social activism on the clock that I'm paying them for? What are you talking about?
Do you? How?
What?
I was talking to the head of a retail organization, and she was saying that her leadership team spend a lot of time in stores. Yeah.
Wow, a retail organization spending time in stores. Okay, where's this going?
Listening.
And
she said something I thought was really interesting. She said, you can't delegate your listening responsibility.
Yes, you can, and you have to. You have. That's why you have subordinates who report to you. You can't? Okay, so if I'm the president of a retail company, I cannot trust anybody who is subordinate to me to tell me the truth. I have to go to every store and listen myself and keep my own counsel on everything. What? Am I? Okay, yes, on the temporal plane, you're right. I cannot delegate my listening to someone else. It's true. Unless they're wearing a hidden microphone and I've got the speaker in my ear somewhere, you're right. By the laws of physics, I cannot do that. But insofar as it comes to running a business, you have to. Am I missing something here? Seriously.
Teams spend a lot of time in stores.
Yes.
Yeah, listening. And she said something I thought was really interesting. She said, you can't delegate your listening responsibility.
Yes, you can.
To pulse surveys.
Yes, you can. Yeah. You have to.
You've got to show up with your ears wide open.
How? This is really starting to make me angry, because this is like talking to me like I'm an idiot or something. How? Okay, well, explain yourself. How would she do that? Or what did she tell you is her method to achieve that? Because I am dying to know at this point how your client, how your friend, how your whatever, how is she accomplishing that?
So what this means is, don't assume you know what matters.
Don't assume I know what matters. You just used an example of a person running a retail company taking polls, straw polls or otherwise, from customers in stores. I'm assuming their stores or stores in which their products are sold. But yet you're trying to relate this to activism within the company via employee to employee? What are you talking about? How many times is that statement going to come out of my mouth in this presentation? Probably too many. I mean, at least that example kind of has something to do with the priorities of the business, selling a product. But how does that relate at all to gauging the interest or necessity of your employees' activist leanings?
Sharpen your antennae.
What?
Try and figure out. And we've written about lots of ways that you can do that.
Would you like to explain or list some of those? Because I have no idea what you mean. Good gravy. Thank you, Keeverdam. Benevolent condescension. Okay, she might just be about to explain something. She says she's written about a lot of ways to do that. So I'm going to give her a chance. She's got about 30 seconds to follow up that statement with an actual list of active examples. Like, this is how you would do that. Otherwise, yes, benevolent condescension.
But underlying all of those methods is an understanding that it's almost inevitable that you're detached.
What methods?
And you need to do a lot more work, actually, to really find out what matters to employees.
Okay, then tell me how. I am dying to know. I am a leader who is just starving for advice on how to listen by proxy, but not through my own ears because I have to be...
So third point.
Okay, now you're right. Benevolent condescension, circling that one. And at the same time, between that, leaves out vital context. She's had multiple opportunities now to actually give some workable, functional advice on whatever she's talking about, and she's just skipped over it. Now, if she circles back and starts detailing, here's how you listen without delegating your listening, I'll take back at least one of two of those things. But no.
Inaction is as political as action.
No, it's not. Inaction, neutrality, is the definition of apolitical. Okay, for those of you listening at home, like you're driving home or something, or just listening while you're working, she's got a card up right now. It says, you can't sit on the activism fence. Yes, you can. Inaction is as political as action. No, it isn't. And underneath it says, don't say or believe you're apolitical. It doesn't matter what my politics are if I'm running a company. This is what we call professional distance, a separation between my personal life and my work hours. This whole presentation so far is just accepting the absolute absence of professional distance and merging one's personal beliefs and everything into the workplace. Now, I'm not saying that doesn't happen, right? There are plenty of companies out there that are inherently political as a company, or inherently socially active as a company. And short of them doing something that violates the law in some way, shape, or form, that's their prerogative. Okay? But you don't have to be. Nothing says that your company has to take a political side on one thing or another actively, right? Short of breaking the law.
We've met quite a few leaders that say that they're neutral.
Are they neutral in real life, or are they neutral in the workplace? Because I could see how you might confuse a statement like that.
On certain issues. Or apolitical.
Well, maybe they are. What if they actually are? Let's say for a second, let's not disbelieve them for a moment and say, hey, what's your opinion on this thing? It's like, I don't care one way or the other. You're lying. Right? That must be your response, because I can't say that. I'm not allowed to believe that of myself. Okay, so if someone says that they're apolitical, what is your response to that?
There's no such thing.
Really? There's no such thing as apolitical. There is a word in the English vocabulary that doesn't actually exist. It doesn't actually describe a state of being or a perspective. There's no such thing as apolitical. Really? There's no such thing as neutrality on an issue. There's no such thing as apathy on a question. Really? Oh, okay. Okay.
Our inaction on things like climate change is as political as our action.
No, it's not. No, it actually is not. You say so, but that doesn't make it so. Mike R., WTF yet? I came close. I came close a minute ago. I think I might have kind of a hair trigger on the WTF button at times. Or maybe my tolerance is just higher than it used to be. I don't know. At the rate we're going, there'll probably be a good one coming up. But I don't want to make it a regular thing. There was a time where a WTF was a rare event. Right, that was a rare event. I created a whole playlist because I thought that it was going to be a once in a blue moon kind of situation, and then it became a bit too regular. So I'm learning patience.
I was working with a HR director in the construction industry.
Boy, so far you've had a financial advisor, a retail company owner or something, and now a construction industry. Are these anecdotes that probably never happened? I can believe that they did. She's not saying anything that's like, and then everybody clapped territory.
Right at the moment where a competitor had said some fairly disparaging things about women in the industry.
Uh-oh. Disparaging. Like what?
It's a huge controversy.
You're not going to tell us what, though. Okay. And you know what? I just thought of something. That whole retail example, as pertains to, actual activism in the company or something, and listening and all that, I'd say that's kind of a weightless example. I do believe that's a weightless example. And as a consequence of that...
Oh, won't somebody please?
Bingo. B-I-N-G-O.
Okay.
Right?
We have our first bingo down the G column, straight down. Weightless example, a list, attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and benevolent condescension. So our first bingo of the night, and we still have about half of the presentation to go. Who knows what we'll get next? Keep your ears open, just like me. And let me back up a second here because I did cut her off.
Said some fairly disparaging things about women in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge controversy.
So guys in the construction industry said something disparaging about women. Oh, imagine my shock.
And this HR director really didn't want to get involved.
Well, I'm sorry, HR director, when it comes to, shades of a hostile work environment or sexual discrimination in the workplace, kind of the job you signed up for, I'm afraid.
He just wanted to avoid the conflict, stay out of it. But his employees wouldn't let him.
His employees wouldn't let him? How about his supervisors? How about his job description? How about the law? Oh, but okay, his employees wouldn't let him. Well, okay. Great. Does this HR director still have a job?
Because his silence would have communicated complicity.
That is not a political position. Gender discrimination in the workplace is not a political question. It is a legal liability question. What are you talking? If I hadn't already used weightless example, I'd be circling it now. No. One of these things is not like the other.
Now, what I am not saying, even though I'm often accused of saying it, what I am not saying is that therefore you need to act on every issue that's out there.
Yes, you... What is the point of everything you have said up to now? What? Okay, so if I don't act... You just said inaction is action. Don't say or believe you are apolitical. If I don't act on something, then I'm doing something wrong. You just had a card up. Contradicts own point or argument. You just told us that inaction is action. Not saying something is bad. There's no such thing as apolitical. You're not saying, even though I'm accused of saying it. I can accuse you of saying because you just did. Okay, all right. I was trying to be, all things in moderation, but this is just...
What the fuck are you talking about?
What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this?
Right?
Do you get paid for this? I mean, it sounds like you're a consultant. So you say things without explaining them. You wholly contradict yourself within 30 seconds of saying something. You bring up examples that aren't pertinent to anything you've said previously and make no sense. I was joking with Sister Scribe the other day. I was talking about some of my recent TEDx's and things, and in the workplace and all that kind of thing. And she's been having to go through a DEI process in her own place of work recently. And boy, she had some stories, and I was just nodding my head the whole time, going like, "Yep, I've had that described to me before. Yep, I've heard about that kind of stuff." I feel very educated, very, so it's like a novice expert. Not a novice expert. I'm contradicting myself. Anyway, I knew what she was talking about, and at one point, I was asking her to tell me more about the person who was training them in this deal. And anyway, very long, rambling story short, as I've said many times before, if I lacked any kind of personal ethics or integrity, I could hang out a shingle tomorrow as a DEI consultant. I could cook up every piece of material and whatever I would need to play that role. And I could probably be making bank. If I just lost all of my personal principles and was willing to just, sell my soul for the sake of a buck, because man, it really doesn't take much except a complete lack of sense or reason when it comes to this stuff. But here's the thing: the people that do this kind of work, I don't blame them. I don't blame them for doing it. I don't think that they're dumb for doing it necessarily, unless they start producing stuff that they think is actually real, but when it's not. What I mean is, if you have a product that somebody's willing to buy, if you have a service that someone's willing to pay for, even if it's gobbledygook, hey, more power to you, right? Doesn't mean I respect necessarily the industry or I agree with, what's behind it. But hey, if some giant corporation is so scared of their own shadow and so wanting to make sure that they have that check mark on their paperwork so they can work with, Goldman Sachs or something, I think it's ridiculous. But I don't blame somebody for trying to make a living off of it. It might be a grift, but I don't know. Anyway.
Of course you don't, and of course you can't. It's infeasible.
Okay, let me back up because I did cut her off. I rambled there for a second.
Because his silence would have communicated complicity.
No.
Now, what I am not saying, even though I'm often accused of saying it, what I am not saying is that therefore you need to act on every issue that's out there.
You just said that, though.
Of course you don't, and of course you can't. It's infeasible.
But you just...
What I am saying, as a leader, is that you need to make conscious, coherent, authentic choices about what you will make a stand on and what you won't.
Can you give an example? If employee X comes up to me and brings up social issue Y, and I don't want to get involved, I don't want to make that anything that we have anything to do with, how do I let that person down without then opening up myself to some sort of claim of either discrimination or claim of not taking them seriously or not listening to voices of diversity or something? What is the method? What is the strategy for turning someone down in their activism as a leader? Do you have a tip you can give us? This was supposed to be a do's and don'ts. I haven't heard many do's yet of specificity.
And do that in conjunction with your stakeholders. And of course, your employees are one of your key stakeholders there.
How?
Final point is that it's useful to understand what your employees think your response has been.
It's important. Again, for those of you at home, it's a card up that says, your response to activism has consequences. Yeah, like maybe don't entertain it in the first place. But anyway, the activism response dashboard. And then there's a meter, non-existent. Whoa! Brett Ide. Hello, Scribelight, stopping by mid-video to have absolutely no idea what is going on, but I'm here regardless. Well, thank you, Brett. Once again, thank you so much. That is very, 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 very generous of you. Appreciate it. Thank you. You and I are in a similar mindset right now. I'm not sure what's going on because our speaker won't explain what she's talking about. Week after week, I am just boggled that just by the random chance of picking something because of its title, I consistently find speakers who do not educate us about anything or just say things without explaining themselves. Is that just common? Is that just endemic to everything? I don't know. Infeasible is not a word. Did I say infeasible or did she say infeasible? I don't know. Is that sort of like irregardless? Okay, so anyway, do's. This is one of the do's of the do's and don'ts. Check how others perceive your response and be prepared for things to get messy. Hey, here's a thought. Why not avoid risking a mess in the first place? How others perceive my response? Am I supposed to be a mind reader now? If I hadn't already circled mind reading assumes motives, I would be. Okay, proceed.
To activist issues so far. Not what you think it is, but what do your employees think it's been?
I don't care.
And in our research, we came up with a kind of taxonomy of different leadership responses.
Oh, okay.
It starts with non-existent or activism. What activism?
Yeah, it's not going to be there unless you invite it. I go back to the same thing I've said so many times now. You have to at least describe and entertain the opposite side of your argument or point before you bring up yours to counter it. What about a company that does not promote employees to be activists on company time? Compare and contrast. Right? If you do not tell your employees this is the place for activism, then it's not an issue, is it? What about those scenarios? Could you describe a situation where a company does not promote its employees to be activists and how they fare as compared to those companies that do? Okay, could you at least at first make the business case for actually encouraging your employees to be activists, to speak up about social issues and so on? Can you at least do that? Of course you won't, right? You're just assuming that that's the way it is to begin with. But okay, so non-existent. Your employees are being activists and you're just going, la-di-da-di-da, I don't see it. Even though a second ago you said that you shouldn't necessarily entertain everything that somebody brings up.
We talked to a chief executive in the manufacturing industry. And midway through our conversation, I asked him about climate change and his strategy and stance on environmental issues. And he looked at me utterly baffled.
I can imagine several scenarios where that would make sense.
It was nowhere on the agenda.
Why should it be? I mean, you said manufacturing company. What did he manufacture? Did his manufacturing process have anything to do with the environment? Was he breaking some laws or something in the process of manufacturing his goods? Why does he need to have climate change on his radar? You're not even going to do that, are you? You're just going to assume that climate change as an issue is something that companies just should be taking a stand on, one way or the other. Okay. You are an activist. Obviously so. There's no room to maneuver here. There's no way to have a different opinion, apparently. Unless you can't have an opinion because you don't want to entertain everything people bring to you, but you have to respond in some way and then read the employee's mind and how you responded, but you can't be apolitical. But
now that looks increasingly inconceivable, actually, but it certainly still happens.
Why is it inconceivable? Why? What does a company, aside from having recycle bins in the company, like at your desks or something, why does any company have to take a stand on climate change or have some program going on amongst their employees for it? Why? You have not yet described the business case for activism writ large, let alone climate change in specific. Why?
And then you get suppression.
What?
Or let's just expel those voices before it spreads.
Before it spreads. How about it is the company's policy not to have employees spending company time on personal social activist issues? The end. Doesn't matter what your social activist issue is. We don't discriminate. They're all unwelcome on company time. The end. If you do start taking company time or resources to do your own activism instead of doing your job, you may be risking your employment here. The alpha and the omega. Why is that a wrong way to go as a leader? You need to describe that first, even if I disagree with you. You need to entertain and accept the other side of the argument first before you shoot it down. Right now, you're just saying, he didn't entertain climate change in his company? Ugh, what a moron. How inconceivable. Inconceivable. Is it inconceivable? Well, he didn't think so. He was right there. That wasn't inconceivable. What counter argument did you have to his indifference?
Now, this is where leaders explicitly silence or implicitly, because employees know that if they do speak up, it'll probably cost them their next promotion.
Speak up about what? About what? Something going on in the company or some social cause? Good gravy. I know, I'm a broken record on this, but it is so infuriating to watch somebody on a stage talking with authority about something and not explaining themselves and just assuming that whatever they're saying is absolutely true and we'll just understand it. Good God.
Or indeed, if they do speak up, they might be ignored. We surveyed just over 3,000 employees in a recent project, and just over 1 in 5 employees expect to be ignored if they speak up about wider social and environmental concerns.
1 in 5 expect to be ignored. So the vast majority don't expect to be ignored? Okay. But what if they are? What if it's an irrelevant subject? What if it's a dumb idea? Whatever it is that you're talking about.
After that comes something that we call facadism.
Okay.
Or let's just say the right things.
Okay, with air quotes.
This is when leaders make proclamations about what's important, and they may even say what they're going to do about it, but nothing happens.
Yeah, it's called modern politics. Actually, most politics. Yeah,
In the wake of George Floyd's murder,
oh, Jesus.
there were many organizations that made statements of support for
Yes.
the Black Lives Matter movement.
You're correct.
When the American Marketing Association investigated things shortly after, they found that less than 1 in 10 had made any concrete changes.
Oh, do you mean to tell me that giant corporations are paying lip service to activist causes just for profit and to look good? Wow. Hey, welcome to Pride Month. You're kidding me, right? Okay, well, what would you say in response to that? What is your advice? Should the companies just hand money over to Black Lives Matter? Do you know where the money to Black Lives Matter has gone?
Then you get to something we call defensive engagement.
You're not even going... Oh my God, lady, seriously.
Or let's just do what the lawyers tell us.
Yeah, that might be the wisest action because ultimately it's the company that's under the gun, so to speak, on these things. If you invite social activism into your workplace and you have employees who are decidedly on opposite sides of the issue and you're favoring some ideas over others when it comes to social issues that may even attach to personally held deep beliefs, you're asking for trouble. You're creating a possible tribalistic situation in your workforce, and that can only invite problems. Is that possibility just completely alien to your thinking?
Now, this is where leaders do engage on a topic, but only because they really have to. Again, working with a senior team recently in the pharma industry, the issue of diversity and inclusion came up on the agenda. It was dealt with in about 5 minutes. And essentially they said, let's send everybody on a course and count the number of women. That was kind of as far as it got.
Uh-huh. Were they obligated to do anything else? You do understand that when you are a leader in a company, you are representing, during work hours, the company and not necessarily yourself. I know I keep coming back to this, but our speaker is apparently operating on a plane of existence where the idea of professional distance does not exist. So I got to keep reminding myself of that, because what she's talking about is so alien to my work ethic and work beliefs. You know, it's just...
They did the bare minimum.
Yeah, okay. What's wrong with that?
And then there's a step change to what we call dialogic engagement.
Okay.
Or let's sit down, listen, and learn.
How do you know that that's not facadism? What if that's just humoring somebody? Listen and learn? Is that also a feint, right? Is this another one of these sort of like bare minimum, but just like putting on a show?
And the reason why it's a step change is because leaders here know that they don't know the answer. What? And they really want to find out what they don't know.
About what?
Okay. So we talked to an entrepreneur who had taken over ex-UK car manufacturing plant.
An entrepreneur who took over an ex-UK car, okay.
And the workers there were very upset about working conditions.
Okay.
And so this entrepreneur decided, in General McChrystal's terms, to share information until it was almost illegal. Common sense incoming. In other words, he got in the employees and opened up the books, shared information and shared decision-making with them about what they needed to do. And that was a vastly different leadership style from the ones that they'd been used to.
And that has absolutely nothing to do with social activism amongst employees. That has absolutely nothing to do with what you are talking about. The workers had a common complaint: working conditions at their job. The person who owned the company had the responsibility and, honestly, the business sense to ensure that his workers were happy at their job. And so he found out what was wrong, and he changed things from the previous management, and the workers were happy. What does that have to do with activism? About any multitude of range of topics that could be brought into the company if you just open the floodgates to it. I'd circle weightless example again, but I've done it once. I don't know. I'm kind of losing it here. This is such a stutter stop presentation of, like, I think we're going to be told something, and then she's all proud of herself for having said a thing, and then there's nothing to it.
Now, right at the end, we've got stimulating activism.
Whoa. Now, I know a thing or two about stimulating activism. I mean, I've taken on a few causes myself in that regard. But
this is when leaders say, let's be the activist.
Oh, God.
This is the Ben and Jerry's and the Patagonias of the world.
Yes. If a company decides to take a stand on something, like, for example, back in the 90s, when there were a litany of companies that took a stand against apartheid, and they actively said, we are going to cease doing business with companies out of South Africa, or that support South Africa, or apartheid organizations, or anything like that, right? Lots of companies did that. It was very, it was a fad, basically, right? And it did contribute to pressures that ultimately, it wasn't the cause per se, there was plenty of other things going on, but it did highlight and bring to public consciousness what was going on in South Africa more so than if they hadn't, right? And so you could say, in the general terms, the lip service from companies in that case did a general good. Okay, fine. Yes, if the people who run the company decide to make a stand as the company, the owners of the company decide to do that, that's their prerogative. That's completely different than just saying, hey, employees, say what you want to say about anything and we will listen to it about it and do a thing stuff.
And they recruit activists.
Oh.
They promote activists.
Oh.
They keep hold of activists in their organizations.
Well, that's great to know. That's great to know. So if I have no interest in using my workday to further social issues, I suppose I shouldn't work for that company. Okay, well, the more you know.
Now, there's many things that I could take out from this taxonomy. Let me draw just 2 key learnings out here.
I wish you would draw out something, because so far you haven't told us anything.
First of all, you need to know where your employees think your response has been so far.
I need to know where my employees think my response has been. So to what? To what? I mean, if I have an employee that comes to me with a race-based social activist movement, and I have another employee that comes to me with an environmentally based social activist movement, and if somebody else comes to me with a gender-based social activist movement, and they're all talking in my ear at once, who am I supposed to prioritize? What am I supposed to do? If everybody comes to me with their pet project, I don't know why I bother asking. Why do I bother asking? I don't know.
First of all, you need to know where your employees think your response has been so far, not where you think it's been.
How?
Because guess what? Let's go back to that optimism bubble.
How?
The more senior you are, the more likely you are to think that you're in dialogue.
How?
But if I ask a more junior employee, they're more likely to say, that's a facade. Or even, actually, I'm scared to speak up.
So?
The second key point.
No, you don't get to say key point and not... If you cannot describe the details of your key point, then it really isn't a key point, is it? Because there is no point. You are serving us blunt pencils.
What? What is that? What the fuck is that?
That's what I'm going to call these things. Blunt pencils. Right? Every time she brings something up, it is a blunt pencil. That's going to be my new buzzword buzz phrase for when we encounter things like this. Okay? I should probably have like a count somewhere. How many blunt pencils are we going to have in this presentation? Good gravy.
His dialogue is messy. It's jam-packed full of vulnerability, ambiguity, disagreement. That's why leaders try and avoid it so much.
Yeah, gosh, because it is unproductive to what the workplace needs, isn't it? Why would I want to introduce an argument or a messy conflict over a social issue in my widget company if I don't have to? Nothing says that I have to, but you're assuming that I have to. And if I don't, you say it's inconceivable that someone could not have climate change on the radar of their company? Are you sure that you're not living in a bubble by any chance, where you think that everybody else thinks things are as important as you think they are a little bit? Do you apply your rules to yourself?
But you can't avoid it any longer. That's not a sustainable strategy. So
I don't have to avoid it if I don't introduce it. If I don't open the door, then nobody can come in. Gordian knot. Don't even entertain activism in the workplace, full stop. How about that option? Is that an option at all? It is an option. I know it is an option because it doesn't happen at my place of work. We do our jobs. You know, we work on the product. I go to work every day. I log in, I do my bit, and I'm done. I don't play activism. I don't push agendas. I do what my job says to do, and I'm happy to do it. Why can't you do that as a company? Why are you not at least entertaining the opposite?
So we need to get far better at experimenting.
How?
At expecting fallout.
How?
About learning from mistakes.
How?
So in summary, we are entering an age of employee activism. And if we can't or won't hear voices of difference in our organization, we need to consider that like the canary in the coal mine.
What are you talking about?
In other words, a signal of danger.
Yes, no, I understand the concept of the canary in the coal mine. What is the proverbial gas fumes? What is the danger?
Because if we can't talk about stuff that matters to us.
What if it doesn't matter to me? What if I'm like the guy you talked to about climate change? Well, okay, so what's the risk? What is the consequence that matters to us, quote unquote?
But that we differ on, that spells disaster.
Wait, what? In the workplace? Sorry, I say that again.
In our organization, we need to consider that like the canary in the coal mine. In other words, a signal of danger. Because if we can't talk about stuff that matters to us, but that we differ on, that spells disaster in our organizations.
Is it germane to the company, its product, or its profitability? If the answer is no, then it is not appropriate for the workplace. Why is that an alien idea? Thank you, Poker Pierce. Hope all is well. Have a great stream. Thank you, Poker. I mean, great is relative in the sense that I'm happy to do this, in the sense that I'm trying to learn something, and I find it, sort of sardonically entertaining, and that so many of you are here to join me on it. So in that sense, yeah, I'm having a great stream. Thank you, Poker. This lady has no idea what she's talking about. She's just saying things. It's all sophistry. It's nothing.
For things like ethical conduct, innovation, inclusion, talent retention, performance.
None of those things have been your priority in this presentation. You've brought up race and climate change and gender issues. You haven't been talking about work productivity or innovation or talent retention. You said those things sort of on the periphery, but that's not what you've been talking about. You've been talking about activism. Improving the state of the company's fortunes is not an activist issue. That is a business case. That is a bottom line thing. That's what every company does because companies are there to make money. You don't know what you're talking about, do you? You make a living at this, I bet. I would not be surprised that whatever it is that you've been doling out to us for the last 15 minutes in your time versus my time, it is utterly amazing how little there is to this presentation. Thank you, John Miller. This woman is like a blunt knife, pointless and not very useful in getting anything accomplished. Yeah. Have we heard one piece of actionable advice in this entire presentation? Anybody listening in the future who can take in the fullness of this, more actively, have we been provided one piece of actionable advice on anything?
So maybe in the face of some of these enormous social and environmental issues,
which have nothing to do with work productivity, talent retention, or anything. You end one statement on one subject, and then somehow you think that just by bringing up the next, you're going to conflate the two together as though they're equal? Good gravy.
Maybe we're finally starting to reassess what good leadership looks like.
What?
Maybe we're starting to see leadership as activism.
What?
And in doing that, maybe we'll enable voices of difference to make a difference in the workplace by allowing them to speak truth to power.
What?
Thank you.
What? Okay. I am nothing but a broken record. I don't know, I have got some sort of weird Midas touch when it comes to picking these things out. I mean, sometimes it might be, implicitly obvious from the title that something I'm about to watch is ridiculous, right? It's not unheard of. And then there's times where I'll pick something on okay, maybe I'll actually learn something. It has happened before, right? I think twice between the origami presentation, which was a viewer's choice, and the asparagus for repairing spinal columns that I watched with Ranting Monkey. It's not impossible that I come across a TEDx or a TED Talk that is honestly informative and or interesting. But where does the school board find them, and why do they keep sending them to me? How is it that I keep lighting upon nonsensical presentation after nonsensical presentation? I mean, I understand it's a TEDx staple at this point, but really, sometimes I'm impressed with just how poor some of these presentations are. Like our previous one, it was poorly constructed. There might have been something there if she'd come up with a couple extra points on the whole Nobel Prize thing, but it was just a poorly constructed argument. I'll take an argument or a presentation I don't agree with, right? I'm fine with that so long as it is constructed fairly well. It's presented in a logical and reasonable way, like I'm listening to an essay, right? But if it's badly constructed, it really doesn't matter what you have to say. It's just garbage. In this case, not only was it poorly constructed because she kept framing it like it was a conclusion. In summary, she said, in conclusion, like it was an essay, but she never gave us anything to dig our teeth into the whole time. She's just saying stuff and giving examples in an abstract sense that said nothing about anything. She's a consultant. I have to assume she's a consultant. She keeps talking about all these business leaders she's working with. I really hope they're not paying out the nose for her services, if this is any example of what she has to offer as a paid service. Thank you, Chicago Mike. Watch Scribe's brain explode. Here's the thing. What am I getting upset about? I just want to make a point of this for anybody who might come along and say, oh, I only watch these things to make fun of them or to take them down. No. What am I getting upset about? I'm getting upset about not being given more from the speaker, right? That I'm not learning anything. I am asking for clarification. I want answers. Even if it's an answer I don't agree with, or it's something that doesn't make any sense to me, I would at least appreciate someone, if they're going to bring up something, they actually describe that thing. Or at least show why I should consider them an expert in whatever they're talking about. This entire series is nothing, or most of the time, it depends on the presentation, but it's my cynicism. And what is the absolutely necessary element of a pure cynic? Hope. That one seed of hope that things could be different, right? And being disappointed when you don't find it. My brain's exploding because I'm disappointed. I am sorely disappointed in this presentation and so many others. But anyway, all that being said, and being so verbose as I am, let's move on to the bingo card. Pull that up here and save that and refresh that. There we go. That's where we're at right now. Now, before I get into the bingo card, and I will remind again before the show is out, I am doing a giveaway of a Steam key for a game called Born Punk that I was gifted, even though it was a game I already owned, so I just have an extra. It is a side-scrolling cyberpunk point-and-click adventure game that is just out on Steam, I think. And so if you would like a chance to win that Steam key, after this live stream is published, and you can leave a comment in the comments, just leave a comment saying, I want to win that game or something. And if you can, leave some indication of how I might be able to contact you to send you that information, like your Twitter handle, or if you're comfortable, some email address, something. Or I'll find a way to get it to you in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, so do that after the live stream is published. And then in a day or two before the Sunday stream, I will do there's a YouTube random comment picker website that I will use to just randomly draw someone's name, and then I will find a way to get you the Steam key. So there you go. There's that. All right, on to the bingo card. Let's go over it one more time myself for any squares, and then if there are any squares left to be circled after I'm done, hold your arguments ready, because I'll probably need them. Anecdote that probably never happened. For all of her, I talked to this business leader, blah, blah, blah. None of her anecdotes were so detailed enough that I could discern whether there was any, deception there or overblowing of something. Nothing felt particularly self-serving in some way, shape, or form. So I don't feel like any of the anecdotes she gave were false necessarily. Self-vilification or wretchedness? No, she never really talked about herself, except for talking to other leaders and things. She was sort of like a passive participant in all those things. Systemic institutional. She in aggregate, if not in specificity, she brought up, the systems of HR, the systems of corporate response, the architecture of a company, the institution thereof. So yeah, I'll circle them. Word salad. I mean, some of that, especially when she just like says things and never comes to a point. Yeah, I'm circling word salad. Sorry, I got to update the card here so you can see that too. There we go. Collectivize his own demographic. She never really did like speak. If she said something like speaking as a woman or as a consultant or something, I don't think she ever really, put herself in some kind of larger monolith. So, white supremacy. Okay, this is a tough one because she did bring up race, but she never talked about white supremacy. She brought up George Floyd, but she didn't dwell on any specifics about it. So, yeah, Black Lives Matter, etc. And again, I'm more discerning on this one because it is a square before a bingo, and so I'm going to need a really good argument to circle that one. Privilege. Yeah, kind of, in the sense that when she talked about the hierarchy and leaders can live in a bubble, right? There's a certain level of implied privilege there, of not having to deal with certain things and delegating and things like that. So at least in concept, if not as it's usually used. Sales pitch for product or service. If only she talked about her consulting business or something. I mean, well, I guess... Was this whole thing just a sales pitch for her services? Because she kept mentioning, I worked with the manufacturing and retail and construction and finance, and I'm all over the place. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to do that because she said we've written books about it or something. She said something like that. We've written like literature on this subject or that process. So yeah, she probably had books or something or pamphlets ready at the end of the show. Plays victim. Again, she never really referred to herself in any of this. She was just sort of a messenger. So I never really got a plays victim thing out of her. Wage gap. She talked about an equity gap at one point or an equity disparity, but she didn't talk about money so much. She did talk about like the hierarchy and the differences between leadership roles versus non-leadership roles, but she never really got into the finances of it. as far as I can recall. So no. Patriarchy and feminism, that kind of literally go together right there. I will circle patriarchy because she talked about that construction guy being disparaging to women. I don't know if I have an argument just on reflex for feminism thereafter, but I'm happy to be argued to on it. Marginalization. Voices of difference. She talked about percentages and people feeling like they're not heard and so on. So I don't think I'm too far off the mark on that one. Argumentative non sequitur. Boy, oh boy. Can I count the ways? Almost like weightless example, but yeah, just bringing up things and there being no payoff. Like the guy didn't have climate change on his radar, and then you just didn't follow up with that. Like, okay, why is that bad? She just sort of like let it drop. Like, well, obviously that's stupid. How can you not? Like, well, he obviously had. Was he unsuccessful in his business as a result? What was the detriment to that guy's situation for not having climate change on his radar? You don't get to bring up something as though it's some kind of proof to the value of your argument and then not explain why it is or isn't. And childhood or family anecdote. She never talked about herself. At no point did she bring up when I was a kid or this, that, and the other. Or my husband does this or my kid does that. So, yeah. There you go. That is the card as I see it. We have the potential for another couple of bingos depending on the arguments you provide me now. So that's in your realm. If you have an argument for one of the squares to be circled, please put it in the chat now. Be sure to tag me in your comments so I can spot it a bit more clearly. I'll scroll up a bit for anything I might have missed. Lexi Mads, hello. And check your logic, hello, by the way. I swear I'm going to become a corporate consultant. You just need to know buzzwords and you get paid. I'm telling you, again, if I just dropped all of my personal integrity, I could probably be making bank as some kind of consultant of one form or another. Because after presentation after presentation, promo after promo, listening to the people who are actually doing this work for a living, it's obvious it really takes nothing other than to say you are this thing. And we had that one speaker a couple of shows back who was, said probably the most honest and pragmatic thing about the whole DEI experience right now is that really it has nothing to do with quote unquote doing the right thing or being fair to people so much as it is now basically a checkmark requirement for a company to have gone through a DEI process if other companies are willing to work with them. That's it. It's a merit badge. And when something is reduced down to that level of importance, you could make a lot of money doing this stuff. You really could, and not have to really know or do anything. Just be there so they can check that mark off on their box there. Let's see. Let's see. Lexi Man, it's true or not feminism, though. I can't make that one fit. She wasn't specific about whammons. Yeah. Maybe there's something in there, but it never really came up. Boy. Ebony Williams, is meritocracy dead? As soon as you start setting quotas and you start assessing the success of your business and workforce on the basis of aesthetics, then if there is a filter in the process that isn't about your skills, ability, work ethic, anything, if at any point there's a consideration for something that's purely aesthetic or abstract, then yeah, it's part of it. Definitely weakens it one place to another. Bridget. All right, and leaves out and leaves put vital context and leaves out vital context and leaves out vital context and leaves. Yeah. Now we had that joke last time. I only allow for so many running gags on this show. Okay, so there you go. And Ken Lee in reference to meritocracy, it is being murdered. Yeah. Like I say, the death of professional distance, the valuation of aesthetics over ability, tokenism, quotas, assessing the success of your diversity of your workforce on the basis of demographics. I don't know how you get around any of that. I don't know how the people who promote it don't see what they're doing and how they're just eroding the very concepts behind the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and actual positive, beneficial protests and activism of that time. I want to talk about an activist movement that actually did an undeniable good for this country. And yet all of this kind of activism and the stuff fueling it is just completely undercutting that bit by bit. It really is remarkable. Jaeger Pony plays victim when she complained about being strawmanned by people about whether you can be neutral in the workplace. Oh, yeah. The people have accused me of saying this or of not saying this, but I say it or whatever she said. You mean that part? I don't know. Is that heavy enough to qualify as a plays victim? I need a chat. I need some feedback on that. Does Jaeger Pony does that rise to the level of a circling of a square? I mean, it's not a bad point. I don't know if it's heavy enough. Brad Young, they see that they're eroding it. That's the plan. Seems to be. Yvonne Solomon, yeah, her people accuse me of saying this, and I don't even, though I just had a whole slide about it. You know what? On the basis of that level of contradiction, and yeah, plays victim. Because you know what? The people that say that are correct. if that little bit in her presentation is any indication, then yes, people are correct in saying that you bring up something and then absolutely contradict yourself a second later. It's true. All right. Any other arguments for squares to be circled? I don't see any bingos a-coming. She never brought up her childhood or family. Feminism is a distant prospect. Wage gap, no. White supremacy. Collectivized zone demographic. Self-vilification, wretchedness. Anthony, I don't know. Tony Giff, how come TEDx's don't seem to have auditions anymore? Well, this is the thing, and I don't know how it works in every instance, and I've described this before. I actually looked up one time how a nearby, let's say, chapter or to myself worked, and the way they did it was they had like a website that had like a schedule of upcoming events and things, and like the event had a sort of broad subject for it, like the TEDx event is about unity, let's say. And so then what you'd have to do, and it was like 6 months off or something. So then what you would do is if you're a member of this site or you're somehow a member of that message board, you would post basically the entire script of your proposed presentation. And then, other people in the community would read these and then vote on them. And then the top, 6 or 7 or however many slots they had for the event, those people will be offered the opportunity to come up and do their presentation. And that's about it. So it's almost like it's a self-regulated system. Now, I don't know how it works from region to region or organization to organization. Some college might decide to do a TEDx presentation where everything is just set up ahead of time. There's no auditions. It's just, the faculty are going to say this, or, students have submitted their deals for that. But, yeah. Now, TED Talks used to be like you really had to have the credentials to read a TED Talk. But then, Lizzo gets on stage and shakes her rump, and that's about all you need for a TED Talk these days. So anything else? It's pronounced Jiff. Oh, is it Tony Jiff? Like peanut butter? Is that it? Do I have it wrong? Tony, I'm not being facetious. Tony, am I saying your last name wrong? Is it Jiff or is it GIF? How should I say it? Or is it something else? Is the G silent? Tony if? Vera Vashmanai, it's pronounced Draffic. Okay. Bridget, there was only one TEDx I know was rejected. Michaela Peterson's talk on her experience with the carnivore diet. Okay. I don't know anything about that one. I know there have been TEDx's that have been removed from the internet, more or less. There was one that was done by some kid that was like a convicted murderer. They did a TEDx event at a prison. And this guy got on stage who had murdered 2 people, and he started talking about how terrible his experiences in prison were or something. And it so fundamentally offended everybody and their brother who knew anything about the case, and certainly the family of the victims, that they took that one down lickety-split. I forget the kid's name. It was like Marsh or something. A couple of the true crime channels and videos on him. He was like 14 or 15 or something and killed 2 people. I won't go into it, but it was terrible. And then he got to do a TEDx talk. Yeah. Let's see. Did I get an answer from Tony? I didn't get a Tony. Cannibals Wizard, is it moving meme or peanut butter? I don't know. I don't know anymore. Anyway, I think we're going to call it there, everybody. That is the card as it stands. We got 1 bingo out of it, almost another or 2 or 3, but hey, that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. Another note about the giveaway. So for those of you showing up late or early or whatever, I have a Steam key for a game called Born Punk, a side-scrolling point-and-click cyberpunk adventure in the classic sense of the old LucasArts games and Night of the Tentacle and things like that. And so if you're interested in perhaps winning that Steam key, once this live stream is published and you can leave a comment in the comment section, please leave a comment with something like, I want that game. And if you're able, some indication of how I might get into contact with you to get you the Steam key. If you have a Twitter account that I can DM you or otherwise, or an email address that you can get to me in some way, shape, or form, let me know by putting a comment down there. I'll be using a random comment picker to choose the winner between now and Sunday, the Sunday stream, Sunday morning, and I'll announce the winner on the Sunday stream. Speaking of which, that's where you can find me next, Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, for the Sunday stream, where I'll talk about a thing on Sunday. And Kiefer Dam, always in to win the day at the last minute. Circle the whole card. You are correct. I meant to do that earlier, of course, but I didn't. So now I have. And there you go. Thank you, Kiefer Dam, so much. Speaking of which, please be sure again to take a look at the GoFundMe's pinned at the top of the chat box for Shady Grin, Angry Illinoisian, and his kitten. If you have an extra couple of bucks you could spare, their friends and their family could certainly use it if you can. And with that, everybody, thank you so much for joining me for this practical non-event. I really do want to have learned something from these things from time to time. I'm going to try. I'm also still seriously considering doing like a week of like every day for a week, doing nothing but TEDx's that have the word superpower in them. Because you could not believe, if you just go to the TEDx page and type in the word superpower in the search bar, you will not believe how many presentations have something to the effect of blank is my superpower. It is so many things are superpowers. I just might do like a superpower week, like in celebration of the slow death of the Marvel Cinematic Universe or something. Anyway, moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very little to do. Those of you that donated either to myself or to the GoFundMe's in the chat box, thank you so much for your generosity. I never expect it, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. Hope you guys enjoyed yourselves. Hope you guys have a good rest of your Thursday and the rest of your week and the weekend ahead of you. Stay cool, because I know the temperatures are rising. I hope you're all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon, and I will see you on the next one. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.